Hey, so someone asked on the topic of anger, well, Pastor Mike, didn't Jesus get angry? I mean, I get that I'm supposed, what's the difference? That's a great question. In fact, in Mark chapter 10 is one of those times when Jesus was really hot. It says people were bringing the little children to Jesus to have him touch them, but the disciples rebuked them. The disciples were keeping the parents and the kids at bay. When Jesus, sort of like a Secret Service detail, if you will, that's a mental picture I have. Hey, don't get close. When Jesus saw this, he was indignant. That word means he was snorting. He was mad. And Jesus said, let the little children come to me. Don't stop them, for the kingdom of God belongs to one such as these. And I'm telling you the truth, anyone who doesn't receive the kingdom of God like a little child is never going to enter it. And he took the children in his arms and he blessed them. Jesus got angry. He got angry over people when we try and keep people from God. That's one of the things that should upset you. When people speak in God's name, but they're not really speaking for God, that ought to really and it does me, right? You see it sometimes with religious people, or you see it when politicians try and be religious, but that there's no life there. The Bible, I think Paul talked to Timothy about, they claim to have a power from God, but there's no evidence of it in their life. That ought to really, as somebody used to say, frost our cookies, somebody really ought to upset us. Jesus was upset over sin. David said, if I have sin in my heart, God doesn't hear me. When we see sinful behavior, the sin ought to bother us, but the heart of the people is what's matter. And I think sometimes when I see groups out there saying God hates fags, God's against abortion, and we pick it and we do these things, I'm not saying necessarily that they may not be the best things. And what I'm really curious about is, do we care about the hearts of the people? We're holding our placards and we're making our voices and we're shouting, but do we care about the hearts of the people? Because Jesus always cared about the hearts of the people. The woman at the well, when he talked to her about her 5 husbands, I think did so with some graciousness, directness, and tact. But he wasn't mean-spirited, and he wasn't out to just throw her under a bus. So Jesus got upset when there were money changers in the temple, when greed was dominating a place that was supposed to be the court of Gentiles, the place where people, not the Jewish people, but people who had heard of Yahweh and wanted to go pray and seek God. It was turned into a place where, you need to pay these fees to have the sacrifices, and it was really not about opening a pathway for people to find God. It was more about people padding their pockets. There are things that should anger us. Injustice, people far from God, and religious people getting in the way of that. It ought to anger us when we see people taken advantage of. If you're going to get angry, let's get angry over the right things. One of the things that really bugs me the most when I see people doing the church hop is this: the message that it sends to those those who don't know Jesus. That ought to be our first concern as we advance the kingdom of God here, as we try to bring the love of Jesus to the lives of people. How we relate together, work together, love each other, speaks volumes to a community that when they get mad at somebody, they run. Hey, this is Pastor Mike. Thanks for that question. I'll catch you again real soon.